have to say that this computer was interestingly packed. Where most sellers ship computers flat, this one was shipped in a sort of sideways floating position. Not something I usually see, but I'm not complaining. There was plenty of packing material keeping it safe. I found this computer on the Dutch version of eBay, my main hunting ground. At first glance, it looked like a fairly standard IBM PC clone from the 80s with 2 half-height floppy drives. But when I scrolled further, something started to feel off. Something a bit more fruity than just a standard IBM PC. I put in an offer I expected the seller would accept. In the listing, he mentioned that if offers weren't good enough, he would part the system out. Not long after, a message came back. Offer accepted. Timing is everything because just after closing the deal, a higher offer came in. So here is the Supercom. The front cover had fallen into the case, probably during shipping. So we immediately get a glimpse of the motherboard. Turning it around, we see the power supply, with the power input mounted on the side, which is not exactly standard. And around the back, there's something that looks like an RF modulator. Let's open it up. The disk drive controller also appears to have come loose, but opening the case confirms something I had only suspected from the listing photos. First clue, the ribbon cables from the drives far thinner than what you would expect in a PC clone. Second clue, the controller itself. It literally says Disk 2 controller. This is not an IBM PC. No, this is an Apple II clone. Definitely more fruity than expected. Before powering it on, I want to inspect the power supply, just in case anything inside is planning to release magic smoke. Most Apple II clones use power supplies that avoid Riva capacitors, possibly a cost-saving decision at the time, as Riva capacitors were better at suppressing interference, but 40 years later it's actually a benefit. They are far less likely to fail dramatically. On my website, retromails.com, I've started adding magic smoke reports to the systems. Machines that may contain Riva capacitors get a warning label. Time for a test. I connected my small Philips composite screen. But before switching it on, I want to quickly roll out the TV and VCR to show a news report about Apple II clones.
We begin in California, where computer clones are keeping customs officials busy. Here's our report, produced by Gary Probst.
They're smuggled into this country aboard jets from the Orient. They're hidden within crates of cargo from Taiwan. They're brought across the border with clandestine methods equal to those used by the most sophisticated drug dealer. People who engage in illegal international intrigue are focusing on high tech.
Love the color of the blue PCB though.
At the U.S. Customs Office in San Francisco, agents unpacked boxes of computer contraband. It's no coincidence that some of these computers resemble an Apple II. They're from Taiwanese companies who are accused of stealing Apple's engineering design. They're illegal because they violate U.S. copyright law. Some machines resemble an IBM or calculator, but internally they're still...
That report mentioned something interesting. That some clones resembled IBM PCs. In the footage, I could only spot one example. Most others follow the wedge style design. Oh, and here on the shelf is another one. This machine clearly sits in that hybrid category. The system uses a small daughterboard for the keyboard. Since it didn't come with one, I had to improvise. Luckily, from my AVT-COM2 systems, 2 other Apple II clones I own, I already had a PS2 adapter board. It's a simple but very effective solution, allowing modern keyboards to interface with an Apple II hardware. The Supercom cable even allows for plug-and-play use. Shout out to the creator of this board. Good news! The Supercom powers on, boots from disks and displays a cursor. Fully functional, I would say. And in true quality channel fashion, the only footage I have of the adapter working is this quick side image test clip. Because right when I started thinking about mounting it properly inside the case, I found another listing. Again on the Dutch version of eBay. A keyboard styled somewhat like an IBM Model F, and in the corner a sticker I immediately recognized. The exact same sticker as on the Supercom case. Then another image showed a DB9 connector. This had to be the keyboard. There was just one issue: the price. The seller clearly had a number in mind, higher than I was willing to pay, and they used every classic tactic, claiming higher offers, saying others were interested too. I just started thinking, what are the odds? I had only ever seen one Supercom, and it was now in my possession. The chance of multiple buyers actively hunting for this exact keyboard seemed low, and also I had a cheap modern replacement board working, so I held my ground. 5 days later the seller accepted. Let's see, did I get lucky? This packaging is giving me lottery vibes. Quick, pick a number. And the winning number is 17. On top we find documentation, a Dutch Supercom system disk manual and an English service manual. Interestingly, neither explicitly mention the Supercom. They cover Apple II systems more generally.
The counterfeiters even go as far as to photocopy instruction manuals, replacing the word Apple with the name of their latest piratical product.
This is a page out of the Guanhar manual. You can see how they've substituted the word Apple with Golden 2. In this case, Steve.
Which aligns with the news report. Clone manufacturers often reuse generic documentation rather than producing their own. And here is the keyboard. It's in pristine condition, almost unused, and surprisingly nice to type on. I opened the system again and removed the temporary adapter board. Reconnected the original cable and board, and plugged in the keyboard. At first, nothing. Then, it works. The system is now complete. Time to throw some software at it. This Sesame disk came with my second Apple IIe. Still a story I need to cover in a future video, as the pickup was quite interesting. All those discs are available on my RetroMails archive site, though the Apple II section still needs some restructuring. One thing about the Supercom remains unclear. I haven't been able to find any advertisements, listings, or references to it. No clear branding, no company trail. So how did this machine grow from being produced in Taiwan to a Dutch attic and now into my collection? Legally, systems like this existed in a grey area. Early Apple II clones often replicated large parts of the original design. Some manufacturers relied on clean room reverse engineering, while others were less careful. Enforcement varied heavily by region, which is why many of these systems appeared in Europe and Asia. Even the boot screen showing JAI6502 instead of Apple II suggests an attempt to distance itself from the original branding. Looking at the keyboard, we see further differences from a standard Apple II. It features a full row of 12 function keys, a blank key, dedicated cursor keys, a reset, delete and home key, a numeric keypad, something only later Apple models included, and a key with a black square on it that probably resembles the Apple logo key. There's also an LF key, which moves the cursor down without executing a command, likely a direct line feed. You might wonder what the function keys do. Well, yes, all sorts of commands. I went through my disk collection and tested compatibility. Most software runs without issue, though some titles expect a true Apple IIe. That makes sense. Later Apple systems relied less on off-the-shelf components, making them harder to clone directly. Also, my floppy MU works well with it. Let's take a closer look at the hardware. First, the PAL encoder board. It likely handles composite color encoding for PAL output, essential for European displays. Maybe someone can enlighten me a bit further in the comments. Next, the Disk2 controller. I compared it to the original Apple controller from my Apple IIe. Aside from minor differences, like missing Apple logo, they are remarkably similar. Then the motherboard itself. Clean, minimal and noticeably less populated than some clone boards shown in the news report. No clear manufacturer markings either, just a sticker with numbers and a label stating CSEC. Of course, I had to archive the ROMs. All chips are socketed, which makes removal straightforward. I used a T48 programmer to read them. IBM 2732A chips, fully supported in XG Pro. The contents appear to be standard Apple II related code. I've archived the ROM dumps and manuals on my archive site. If anyone else has a Supercom or needs replacement, they're available there, or just to peruse. Interestingly, the manuals featured standard Apple II keyboard layouts, not this one. And again, no company name is mentioned. At the back, however, there are recommendations for magazines. One stood out. A publication focused on bypassing copy protection, named Hardcore Computing. I found a picture of one of its issues online. A fitting detail, I think. So what can we conclude? The Supercom answers some questions, but raises even more, although not being super complicated. But regardless, this bootleg Apple II clone is a fascinating system. And with that, as I get my Oregon Trail party ready, I want to thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time.